I'm George Mariner Mole for the Discovery Orchestra, and welcome back to the second of this series of 4 Discovery Orchestra chats on Pyotr Ilyich Tchaikovsky's Romeo and Juliet Overture Fantasy. In the first episode, we looked at the introduction in which the only character from the play to be portrayed was Friar Lawrence, the cleric who attempted to help the young lovers negotiate the enmity between their respective families, and, as we know, his plan ultimately failed. In the exposition, or first main section of this sonata form movement, Tchaikovsky will first portray the violent nature of the dispute between the Capulets and the Montagues. Look at number 11 in the listening guide. I'm going to say the rhythm Tchaikovsky created to musically characterize the conflict, and you say it after me. Da, 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 da. And now you. One more time. Da, 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 da. All right. Let's listen to the orchestra play the first theme of the exposition. At number 12, it says the violins and the blanks imitate each other. Who are the blanks? And the answer is not the Montagues. You need to listen for what instrument or group of instruments goes into that blank. If you picked the woodwinds, you're right. And I hope you noticed they also played a very rapid 2-step ascending sequence. A sequence is a musical repetition that changes altitude either up or down. Now, at number 13, we have stretto. A stretto is an imitation that overlaps. So let me first demonstrate imitation. My right hand will imitate my left hand. Now, my right hand will again imitate my left hand, but this time, my right hand won't wait for my left hand to finish before it rudely interrupts and begins the imitation before my left hand has concluded in what we call a stretto in music. I've been known to say that many conversations in my home between my brother and me when we were growing up were strettos. Here's stretto. At number 13, I'd like you to count how many times the stretto passage Tchaikovsky gives us occurs. Here's one occurrence. I know, that was very short. Listen to one occurrence of this passage again. Now, count the total number of occurrences. And the passage occurred twice. Perhaps you also noticed that Tchaikovsky made a 2-step ascending sequence out of this stretto passage as well. Listen one more time. Forgive me. That was, of course, the Friar Lawrence theme that begins the overture. Every once in a while, I just have to make sure you're really paying attention, really listening, and not just hearing the music. Okay, no more jokes. Listen to the music at number 13 and notice both occurrences of the stretto passage and that the second one is higher in a 2-step ascending sequence. Listen to the music now at numbers 14 and 15 and fill in the blank at number 15. We get a real sword fight going between the two families, created by lots of cymbal crashes and syncopation, that is, accents or rhythmic stresses in places where we don't expect them. At number 15, we had a return of the first theme. After the music calms down at number 16, which serves as a transition, we finally arrive at one of Tchaikovsky's most famous melodies, the second theme, the so-called love theme. And it has two parts. The first part is considered by many music scholars to be Romeo and sounds like this. Listen to the sound of one English horn, the oboe's slightly longer and lower-pitched cousin, and the viola section play the first part of the second theme, the Romeo theme. Yes, that's the one people remember and sing on the way home from the concert. But the second part of the second theme, the part that I like to call the Juliet theme, is so tender and delicate. It's perfect for a beautiful teenage girl. The melody of the upper line doesn't really sound like much by itself. But when combined with Tchaikovsky's incredibly sensitive choice of chords to harmonize this melody, it melts our hearts and activates our tear ducts every time we encounter it. I mean, could there be a more tender, romantic feeling than that, expressed in wordless, abstract music? Listen to the muted string section of the orchestra play this. Listen now to the music at number 18 and fill in the two blanks. Look at the second blank first. The flutes and oboes are playing the Romeo theme. What one instrument fills the other two blanks? French horn. And the French horn, while not playing the melody of the Juliet theme, is playing the rhythm of the Juliet theme. Da-da, da-da, da-da. It's very subtle. So now we can fill in the first blank at number 18. It's Juliet. She is there in spirit through the French horn part. Listen to number 18 again. All right, we're about to head into the development section, where Tchaikovsky will change, alter, or develop the themes of the exposition. We'll begin the music at number 19 in the closing section of the exposition. Be ready to fill in the blank at number 20. What theme starts uncharacteristically softly at number 20? It's the first theme, the Capulet-Montague conflict theme. We're going to play the music now from number 20 to 22. Even though I can't see you, raise your hand when you spot Friar Lawrence at number 21. Even though it was in a higher register and faster than the beginning of the overture, the Friar Lawrence theme is even in the same key. And although the music sounds not at all like the Juliet theme, the rhythm is there in the woodwinds, da-da, da-da, but now played staccato or short, dot, 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 dot. Listen again. Listen now to the music at number 23 and fill in the blank. There is a hint at number 23. Did you notice the first theme makes an appearance? Dun, da da da, dun, da dun, da da. Things get really wild now. We'll let the music continue at 24 all the way to number 27, the beginning of the recapitulation, where it should sound like number 11 in the listening guide, the beginning of the exposition. But we have a lot of blanks to fill in along the way. Here we go. Hold on to your hat. How did you do? At number 25, the trumpet blasts the Friar Lawrence theme while all the rest of the orchestra punctuates with a first theme fragment. Da-da-da, 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 reduced from da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da. At number 26, we have that unison scale riot in the strings that happened way back at number 15 in the exposition. And finally, Tchaikovsky recapitulates. That is, he arrives at a moment that sounds just like number 11. Just for comparison, here is number 11 that begins the exposition. And here is number 27. In our next chat, we'll take it from the recapitulation all the way through Tchaikovsky's magnificent coda, or extra ending. Once again, we've been listening to a performance by the Colorado Symphony Orchestra, conducted by Marin Alsop, courtesy of Naxos of America Incorporated.